So, Eve of Ruin campaign update. If you're just now joining us, I ran Descent into Avernus for my home group, and that has then transitioned into running Eve of Ruin with my home group because they are pretty close in levels where you end in Descent into Avernus and where you start in Eve of Ruin. You're pretty close. So it does sort of dovetail, not perfectly, but relatively nicely with a little bit of work. So, spoilers for Descent into Avernus, Eve of Ruin, and potentially Baldur's Gate 3. So this leg of the game took place in the Underdark, specifically in a safe house for Loth worshippers called Webb's Edge. And since this game takes place after the events of Baldur's Gate 3, whereas Descent into Avernus took place before the events of Baldur's Gate 3, I decided that I was going to throw a little Easter egg in there, and I threw in Minthara. I threw her in there with the idea that maybe the party would negotiate with her, or if nothing else, fight her, right? But either way, she was meant to be a one-off cameo guest appearance NPC. Well, what wound up happening is the party split 3 different ways and progged combat with not 1, not 2, but 3 full large encounters in the dungeon. One of whom was Minthara. We're using the 2024 rules, and we have a 13th level cleric in the group, Twilight Cleric. During the combat, Minthara comes out trying to defend Webb's Edge, thinking that this is just your run-of-the-mill interlopers, and shouts, "I will defend my home, you'll pay for this," general, like, epithets. And the 13th level Twilight Cleric decides that's not happening, and so uses Divine Intervention, which takes any spell that you could cast and reduces it to a standard action, and uses it to cast Geese slash Gesh slash Quest on Minthara, and you have to help us with our quest. And so Minthara, in that moment, immediately has to switch from "I'm going to attack you" to "I now have to help you." But then it led to this beautiful moment of inter-party conflict where one of the players is playing a Genasi, and the Genasi are related to Jinnikind, and Jinnikind are typically enslaved and forced to serve, whoever holds the ring, whoever holds the lamp, yada, 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 yada. So she comes to the character and says, "Hey, like, I understand heat of the moment, you needed to get, we were under a lot of pressure. Like, there was a couple of people that almost died in that combat. I understand what you were doing. Could you please release the spell? I don't feel right about forcing this person completely against her will to do our bidding." Now, the player of the Twilight Cleric, to his credit, had rolled the traits and flaws at the very beginning, and that has changed a couple of times for this character for various different sundry character reasons. One of his flaws is, "I will do whatever it takes to serve the greater good." His way in doing that and determining what is the greater good is communing with his goddess, which is Selûne. Now, during this time, a couple of the other characters had gone to Minthara and explained to her what exactly it was they were doing. They're trying to stop Vecna, who's trying to reshape the multiverse in his image, and ultimately convince her that this is a worthy cause to fight for. So she ultimately negotiates, "Hey, if you release me from this spell, I will help you to the best of my ability. If you don't release me from this spell, I will help you to the worst of my ability." So ultimately, she was released from the spell, and it worked out okay. But it was this beautiful moment of inter-party conflict where everybody was in character. We had our X cards handy just in case. Nobody got super upset or angry. Everybody comported themselves very, very well. I'm very proud of my players. I'm very proud of my players for what they did and how they handled that.